I know we've got members who watch these later. So are you still getting ready, or are you good to go?
Rock and roll.
I am. First off, I'm going to spotlight you, and then I assume that you need screen sharing.
That would be awesome.
Okay, then I will make you. Okay, where? Okay.
You can co-host me in the participants panel.
That's what I'm trying to do here.
Find me in the list, highlight my name, click on the
there
more drop down. There it is.
There we go. And make co-host.
Make co-host, and I can share screen. That's awesome.
Yeah, because the little drop-down menu on your picture disappeared as soon as I spotlighted you.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, boys and girls, I invited Vince. He is another member of the Ham Radio Workbench podcast, as I was talking about earlier. We've had George on, and we're going to have Mike on to talk about Flex, but then he was ill, so he sent along a substitute who it's very entertaining talk, and we learned a bunch of stuff. So we thought we would invite another member, and I think then we've got all of you. So
awesome.
I will turn it over to Vince, VE6LK, who is going to talk to us about designing and building a Go kit for specific purposes. Have at it. And everybody else, mute yourself if you would. And it's all up to you.
Paul and company, thank you so very much for having me along this evening. I'm very honored to be here among you tonight. And I'm looking for my Zoom window. Pardon me while I look away. There it is. I love it when it goes hiding on me like that. And I'll share out my desktop. And you should be able to see my slides now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So welcome along. I am going to focus more on the equipment and a little wee bit about the human comfort aspects of Go kits and the world of operating away from home. I am a guy who's been operating portable for almost 20 years, mostly out of necessity. In my first home, a townhouse row house, I couldn't operate in the house very often because of very poor wiring in my neighbors' homes, and they complained I was coming through their telephones and their TVs. So I ended up operating portable and mobile a lot. I'm a guy who does probably about a dozen events a year. And this kit was born after my experiences with the 2013 Southern Alberta floods. You can find those stories on my website if you're so interested. And several public service events where things did not go according to plan, as the expression goes. So let me get into it here. But first, this is the audience participation part of the evening. And that means I have to grab a scrap of paper to write on, write your answers down. Would you tell me, can somebody shout out, please? What's a Go kit?
To me, it's more or less self-contained radio station in a portable case that you can take with.
Anyone else, please?
It's what you use when the CIA is after you. Surround yourself with a Faraday cage.
When the CIA is after you. I'm going to see how I can work that into my talk tonight. That's an interesting answer. Thank you. Anyone else?
Don't be shy. Unmute yourself, though.
I think a lot of people think of a Go kit as something that you use for emergency preparedness, right?
Emergency preparedness. Okay, great. And then, what is that kit used for in your mind?
Special events in your local community to help whatever they need help with.
All right.
Parks on the air.
Okay.
And in my case, it's going to be Parks on the Air.
2 votes for Parks on the Air. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? All right, so let's build on those as we go through the slides, and I'll take a window and move it over here, and then I can see my own slides. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. First off, excuse me, I'll give you a quick introduction to who I am. I'm going to talk about Go kit types. I will talk about what's in a Go kit. I'm going to talk about purpose. What's your purpose? What's my purpose? And then lastly, I'll give you a tour of my own kit. But you know, there's so many options available to you as you build your own, and just the diversity of the answers you've just given me shows that out. It's my hope that by the end of the presentation, you'll have gained some ideas for your own. So I got interested in amateur radio at age 7, and I finally licensed at age 40. I tried licensing at age 18, but you know, at age 18, there are other social pressures, and the way I got half of my exams done, and then Morse code still, I was going to say still eludes me. It's still hard. Anyway, I got licensed at age 40. I do a lot of public service events, 6 to 12 events a year on a busy year. Lately, a whole bunch less, but you know, it's been an unusual couple of years, as we all know. For me, my very first public service event was a tremendously fulfilling learning experience. At the time, I thought it was a train wreck, but you know, when I look back on it, I've learned something out of it, which is really the important thing. I'm certified at ICS level 300, and the 400 course keeps coming up in this area at times when I can't get to it. It's absolutely on my list of things to do. I'm the areas or Auxcomm assistant in the Alberta foothills area, and that's the geographical area that's south of the city of Calgary in southern Alberta. I'm a podcast team member, as Paul has said, with the Ham Radio Workbench, and as I'm known to say, I'm probably the dumbest guy on the crew, which means I'm honored to be there, and I learn something every day. I help out with repeaters and projects in my club. I build stuff for my radios to make my hobby more enjoyable. And when I'm not doing something ham radio related, which is almost never, I've been known to strap on a tank and a mask and go underwater. So I'm PADI open, advanced open water diver and such. And I'm a self-certified musician since 1969, which is really a fancy way of saying I've been playing the guitar since I was 7. So let's start with the basics, some Go kit types. As I showed you folks already, if you ask a bunch of ham radio guys for their definitions of a Go kit, you're going to get a bunch of different answers, and usually that's N+2. Tonight it's a little bit fewer, but that's okay too. The variety notwithstanding, tonight I'm going to try and keep it simple. If you'd like to look at a really interesting Go kit, the fellow who's sitting there at the picnic table, he's doing a POTA. Whiskey Alpha 4 Alpha. Go look him up. He's won awards for the build of the kit that's on the table in front of you. I don't know very much about it other than that, but here's a guy who did all of his own metalwork and machining to build that incredibly impressive little enclosure, totally self-contained. Go kits, they fall into really 2 main categories. It's those that fit into a bag of some sort, like a backpack or a camera bag or a laptop bag, or those that fit into some sort of a box, a 19-inch rack mount case, like a Gator case is, you know, the usual thing you see. Musicians love these 19-inch road case style, or they fit in a plastic suitcase like a Pelican or a Nanook or anything like that, or it's something that's built to suit, as you saw on the prior slide. And then Go kits fall into 2 subcategories. They're either battery powered or grid powered, and there's a purpose for each, right? So what's in a kit? All kinds of stuff, and I let my fingers do the walking to find some interesting photos for this slide. For India 1 Bravo Hotel Papa, I believe that's from the Philippines, if I know my call signs correct. A very interesting layout of that individual's Go kit. And the upper left is from Thomas, Kilo 4 Sierra Whiskey Lima. Go look at his YouTube channel. If you want to see a guy that does POTA from end to end, he takes his video camera and he pops it on the table on a tripod and he turns it on. He says, "Hi, I'm Thomas and I'm at such and such a park." And you watch him do the whole activation. His activations are never long. They're 20 or 30 minutes. That's to say his videos are 45 minutes long. He jokes that it's about as for him, it's about as interesting as watching paint dry, but his YouTube numbers tell a completely different story. And he'll talk through the trials and tribulations of whatever kit he's setting up on that day. He's a master of kitting, I might add, too. You can hear him. We interviewed him a couple of times on Ham Radio Workbench. So all kits have all of these things in them. A radio and power distribution. Can't be on the air without a radio or figuring out a way to plug it in. But beyond that box of the bag, you're going to need some antennas and some supports of some sort. You need some feed line, you're gonna need some power cables, and you're gonna need manuals for your equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your manuals with you or know your gear very, very well. It doesn't matter whether you carry a paper manual with you or carry it on an iPad or tablet of some sort, but take a manual with you, because it's when you don't use that gear very often that you need to figure out that esoteric thing like, I'm in VFO mode and how do I turn on CTCSS tone? Please bring your manuals with you. So some of these kits have these things as well. They got more than one radio in them. They've got a microphone. They've got a CW key. They've got a digital interface. They've got a computer. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what do you mean they got a microphone? Not everybody goes out to do phone. A lot of people go out to do CW. And the converse is true as well, right? They've got a power meter, an antenna tuner. They've got some external speakers, maybe. They've got a battery, a charger, a solar panel, something to power the rig. And then there's stuff to make your life simpler and easier. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but for me, this is bare minimums. A paper, pencil, pen, Sharpie, clipboard, notebook, highlighter, and tape. And my favorite tape, I'm going to show it to you later after I'm stopped the slides. A coffee mug, a water bottle, a fuel bar, a first aid kit, fresh clothing, adequate food, fresh clothing, dry socks. Oh my, just take a pair of dry socks with you, and when your feet get wet, you'll thank me later. Adequate food, some supplementary lighting, depending on where you'll be and when you'll be, and a poncho. And a poncho is a very useful item to take along to either throw over your gear to protect it from inclement weather or hot weather. So let's think about purpose. So first off, I'm an incredibly strong supporter of building kits for a purpose. It is really about the basics of setting your goals and building towards them. So here on the screen, there's half a dozen kits that are clearly built for various different purposes, from the 2 Pelican boxes in the upper left corner to the bag in the lower left, and the homemade wooden box in the middle, the gator case in the middle on the other side, the ammo box, et cetera, et cetera. So let's define purposes. Let's start with the purpose. Why do you want a Go kit? All of these options that are up here on the screen are just a sampling of things to ask yourself before you pick up a screwdriver or buy a radio. And all of the things on this page drive out the rest of your limitations, which I'll cover off shortly. So why do you want a kit? What's your purpose? Are you going camping or POTA? Are you doing events? A couple of you said you are. EmComm or Auxcomm support. Where are you going to use this? On a picnic table? Are you going to be indoors? Going to be on a top of a mountain? What frequencies do you want to cover? HF, VHF, UHF? What modes are you going to operate? CW, voice, digital. Digital WinLink comes to mind pretty easily in some cases. What's your operating power level? Are you going to be running at 5 watts all day? Are you going to be running at 100 watts all day, somewhere in the middle? And what's the purpose for your QSOs? Is it casual, where if you don't make the contact, oh well? Is it contest, where there's a bit of heat on to always make the contact, but if you don't get the points? Or is it EmComm, where the message has just got to get through? Let's define your electrical requirements. How are you going to power this thing? What's your source? Is it a commercial mains? Is there a generator around? Is there a battery, or you got to run off solar or some combination? What's your operating power level? And this is part of the electrical requirements as well. 5 watts, 25 watts, 100 watts. How long are you operating for? Is it a few hours? Is it unlimited, unknown? And then where is your power located? Is it close by or is it distant? So all of these things are limitations to figure out your power and your electrical requirements. Let me take a bit of a sidebar. A lot of folks like to operate on battery, and battery math seems to evade a lot of folks. So let's do it the easy way. I'm gonna assume my favorite FM rig, an FT8900. It's so favorite I own two of them and an 8800. It's running on 2 meters at 50 watts. My assumption is I'm a busy net control station. I'm talking 40% of the time and I'm listening 60% of the time. I'm out there for 8 hours. And then I'm going to reference my 8900 manual. Remember your manual, right? Here, take a look at your manual. It says your transmit current is 8 amperes and your receive current is just under an ampere. So then do the math in the middle of the slide. You're going to transmit 8 hours at a time at 40% times 8 amperes is 25.6 ampere hours. Then do the receive side. 8 hours times 60% of the time times less than an ampere is 3.84 amperes. Add them together, and you're going to need for that 8 hour period on that plan, 29 point whatever amp hours of battery are going to be needed. Now, I'm going to note that add a battery or extra charging to allow for overtime or cold weather or voltage sag. I'm not going to get into a discussion about battery chemistry and how batteries differ. I'm just going to encourage you to read up on how they differ and understand what voltage sag is and when it's going to hit you. So got to add up all of the power consumption of all of the devices in your kit that you're going to power off the battery. So your power consumption duty cycle varies by your mode. So let's go back to think about how FM and AM and sideband and CW are formed. My rule for power consumption is FM and digital modes, the CW modes. If it's a busy station, you're transmitting 40% of the time, you're listening 60% of the time. That's when your power is getting consumed on that same ratio. If you're running on phone, it's more like 25-75. And you can use these to figure out about how much battery you're going to need for what duration of time. These are the rules of thumb that I've worked with for a while that have proven me out well. So let's go back to some more definitions. Let's define your mechanical requirements. Your purpose really is going to determine the size of your gear and therefore the kit that you're going to build up. So these are some things to consider. The size, what size is it? Is it going to be tiny? Is it going to carry in one hand? Is it luggable? Does it need a crew of roadies and a set of Greyhound buses? Is it 3 pounds, 10 pounds, 50 pounds? What form factor is it? In a small bag? Is it in a backpack, a suitcase, a Pelican? Does it need a dedicated vehicle to drive it around? Per the crew of roadies up above. Where are you going to set it up? Is a table needed? Can you sit it on the ground? Do you wear it on your body? All of these are determinations for the mechanical requirements. And once you have the mechanical requirements and the electrical requirements together, you can start to think about what goes in your kit. So now you've got that real starter list of how to figure out how to determine what your requirements are. Somewhere along the way, I probably should have mentioned my two friends, Kepner and Tregoe. Kepner-Tregoe is a decision analysis approach, and it says define what you must have and define what is nice to have in your kit. So once you do that, you can start to figure out all of the rest of those requirements. So here's what's in my kit. You can see my kit in the upper left photo, my camping antenna on the ground in the lower left, my RV, which is a tiny 40-foot fifth wheel. I go glamping, I don't go camping anymore. And then a setup I did at the Rocky Mountain Rally in British Columbia, set on the table along with some of my problem solvers. So let me share what's in the rest of my kit. First off, here are my design requirements. I operate indoors. I'm not a mountaintop kind of guy. So as the expression goes, everybody's in shape. I'm in a shape. My shape is round. I do not climb mountains. I do not go hiking. That's not what I do. And so once I recognize that limitation, I operate indoors. I'm in an EOC, I'm in logistics or net control, or I'm glamping. On occasion, I'm out in the field in a field position. I operate off 120 volt mains more often than not. 12 volt DC for me is optional. It's a just in case or a backup plan. The frequencies I need to cover for the events that I do are HF to UHF, 80 meters to 70 centimeters. The modes I operate are phones, CW, and digital. My power level is up to 100 watts. More often than not, it's 10 or 25 watts on FM. And the purpose that I go out and operate portable is event support, disaster Auxcomm support, or plain old glamping. In my kit, my must-have items following Kepner-Tregoe are multiple concurrent V or UHF VFOs. As our friends in the military say, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And I have been at events where a radio has failed, and the alternate net control picks up and takes over because you've got duplicate equipment, duplicate hardware, people who both know how to do a job. For me, a must-have is an externally amplified speaker and a headphone distribution amp. And this is the headphone distribution amp is for creature comfort. My creature, I'm the creature, so that I can listen to it at a level that's comfortable for me, but those in the room around me can hear it at a level that is comfortable for them. And I'm a guy who's, I previously mentioned the shape I'm in. What I haven't mentioned is I'm also a guy with a bad back. And so for me, each piece must be one arm carryable and rugged for transport. I want to be able to toss it in the back of a truck and go in a hurry if I need to, because I have experienced that. And it's the easiest way to travel it around. So over the next several slides, let me give you a really in-depth tour of the kit. When I set it up in front of me, this is what it looks like. So what's missing here are a whole bunch of cables, and I didn't turn it on for the photo, but my kit is primarily housed in Pelican 1500 series cases and an Anvil road case to carry my extra items in a safe and protected manner. And that Anvil road case is the size of a briefcase. It's a rather unique Anvil road case. So yes, I can dance on it because it's an Anvil brand case. I don't, but it carries my pens and pencils and all of my problem solvers, like my very famous roll of tape. And I'll talk about that later. I promised I would. It carries all that in that case. So from left to right at the top, I carry 2 Yaesu VX7s because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Yaesu VX7s are incredibly durable radios. So pick a radio that you can live with as a handy talkie. I'm not going to tell you one brand is any better than another, despite working at a candy store. I will tell you that you should define your requirements and think about what you need it to do. I need a radio that, frankly, I can drop without worrying about it. And my VX7s have survived several tumbles. I'm not a klutz, but I've owned them for 12 years. And the only way that one gets 12 years life out of a radio is if it's durable. Let's face that fact, right? Because there are two kinds of people in this world, right? There are those who drop their radios and those who lie about the fact that they didn't. I have my external speaker on one side. I have a creature comfort device, and that's a fancy way of saying I have a little tiny cooling fan. I've got my 12 volt power distribution strip in the left-hand case. Moving over to the right-hand case, down below the checker plate is my AC to DC supply. It's a little tiny PowerWorks SS30DV. There's nothing fancy about it. I think the power switch lights up when I turn it on. That's as fancy as it gets. Doesn't need to be fancy, it's hidden. I have the second external speaker for the second radio. And then I have a 50 amp hour, 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery pack. And I'll tell you a secret, in this photo, the battery pack wasn't live and it's still sitting on my bench, but you get the idea. Along the bottom from left to right, I have my WinLink to go kit. This is a TNC and a UHF data radio. And in this part of the world, we have created UHF packet infrastructure, digipeater infrastructure specifically for WinLink and a WinLink gateway so that we can get messages out in this immediate area. This area is prone to flooding, and the snowpack is about 145% of what it normally is. So many of us are dusting off our radios and making sure our batteries are fully charged this early in the year. Coming into the left-hand side of the left kit, I've got the headphone app. One channel has been modified for 2.5 watts of output with an LM386 module that I found on eBay. So I'll show you a photo a bit later on of that. But I bought an off-the-shelf headphone app from a music store, and I hacked it to meet my purpose. I've got an LDG Z11 Pro 2 auto tuner, good for HF to 6 meters, and I've got a SignalLink sound card. All of this stuff in the left-hand side of the case is snaked over with a cable. I can set this entire kit up in about 5 minutes, not including antennas. I come over to the right-hand side. I've got a transceiver 1 of 2 is an FT8800. It's a dual band radio that does crossband as well. And then I have my beloved FT857 all mode radio, the Shack in a box. And I have an external meter so I can tell if I'm hitting ALC when I'm doing digital modes. And then lastly, I've got a Toughbook CF53 computer running Windows 7. It's an i5 with 8 gig of RAM and 200 gig of solid state hard disk. It's a ruggedized computer, and I'll talk a little bit more about what's in that computer a bit later on. So the one thing I haven't said yet is what's my purpose. My purpose is to replicate my home setup when I'm out in the field. I don't want to have to think twice to operate my gear. I don't want to have to turn on a strange radio that I barely operate. I want equipment that I'm familiar with, that I can use and be very comfortable with. And this replicates gear that I have elsewhere. So here's an elevated view taken overhead. Now imagine I've lifted the checker plates up and off the floor of the kit. Why did I use checker plate? Because that's what was available at Metal Supermarket. Just get something that works for you. I went to Metal Supermarket and kind of kicked around, and checker plate seemed to be the inexpensive choice on that day. From left to right on the top row, I carry an assortment of RF adapters, BNC to UHF, some N to UHF, N to BNC, etc. I carry a few short RG400 jumper cables, and these are used inside my RV. You'll see the photos in a couple of minutes to hook up my radios, but it never hurts to have a couple of short jumper cables around. I carry 12 volt to USB cables, and these are buck converters that are wired up, automotive buck converters really, that are pulled apart and wired up, and I use them to charge a cell phone or drive the creature comfort device, the fan. And the left-hand side of the case, my cat cable is tucked in. That black and red cable that you see there is the 12 volt feed that comes over to the left-hand case. And then I've got some flat grounding cables. So this is copper tinned braid. It's an inch wide. I carry them in 2 lengths. I carry a 5 foot and a 10 foot. I can combine them together to get to 15 foot. If I need to get a ground plane out or ground to a chassis, like the chassis of my RV, I can do that very simply with that cable. You can see the PowerWorks supply and the AC cable is there. Along the bottom from left to right, a new version of Java is available. I'm going to skip that version. Excuse me while I clear that dialog box that came up right in the middle of my slide. Along the bottom from left to right, an external speaker, one of the 2 external speakers, that's the words I'm trying to say. In the right-hand case, a headphone extension cable, a second external speaker. And one of those external speakers has been modified that it's got an AV switch on it. If I needed to bypass the headphone distribution amp, I can flip a switch on the side of that and be listening on the external speaker or be listening on headphones. That was an earlier version of how to split my audio. I carry a dual band mag mount antenna in each of these cases. And that's to say, so I carry 3 of them because remember, I've got my WinLink to go kit as well. These are the rare earth style mag mount antennas. They're made by Workman, in case you're interested in the brand. There is nothing special about them except they're neodymium or rare earth magnets, and they stick on everything. And if you need an antenna in a hurry, you've got a quarter wave. And then you can see the spot where the FT meter lives. In terms of other gear that I carry with me, I carry along RG400 feed line and spares, 3 50-foot lengths of it. So RG400 feed line is the size of RG58 from a physical perspective. It's double shielded. It's much lower loss than RG58. It's somewhere between RG58 and LMR 400, so it's good across the spectrum. It's excellent for work. It's Teflon coated, so it's reasonably durable. I carry an 80/40 20-meter fan dipole. You saw it laid out on the ground in an earlier photo. I carry along with me a Comet HFJ 350M. This is a vertical antenna, and I carry it on a tripod. That antenna is good for up to 100 watts of intermittent use. So if I don't have space or whatever to stretch out my fan dipole in an inverted V, I can set up this Comet antenna for a single frequency and be on the air on HF. I carry a Diamond X50. That's a base station antenna, if you will. It's a small collinear, good for V and UHF. And I have a 30-foot military style push-up mast, guy ropes and stakes to set it all up with. That mast drops into a trailer hitch receiver, so I can either slide it in on the trailer hitch on the back of my truck, 2-inch Class C trailer hitch, or at the back of my RV, which is so equipped. And it's a real fast way for me to set up the mast. I carry 120-volt extension cables. Remember that I'm operating usually on grid and in places where power is available. I'll carry a couple 100 feet of cables. I don't need a lot of power to operate what I'm doing, so voltage drop isn't an issue for me. But voltage drop is a consideration if you're running a lot of high power and you're trying to do it off a 16-gauge cable. I carry 2 sets of headphones with me. I have a set of Heil Pro 7s, and I have a set of Sony listening headphones. So depending on what I feel like that day, I will bring that along. I've got a CW kit. I've got a couple that I can bring along. Despite my great lack of proficiency in CW, I can still bang a message out if I need to. I carry along the Toughbook, which I'll talk about a bit later on. So I've got problem solvers, as I call them. 3M blue painter's tape. Ladies and gentlemen, accept no substitutes. This stuff is the bomb. This is 1 inch wide. Why do I use blue painter's tape? And why do I use 3M specifically? I've tried other brands, and the other brands have this habit of leaving sticky stuff behind. This stuff doesn't leave sticky stuff behind. I can tape something down on a desk. I can tape something up on a window or up on a wall, and I'm not going to worry that I'm going to damage anything when I take the tape off. It's especially very helpful for when I am doing events and I've got a whole series of maps out in front of me or other charts. I carry an assortment of Sharpie markers, including a metallic Sharpie marker, because a metallic Sharpie marker will write on coax cable to indicate that it belongs to me or to somebody else. That's how I make notes on my coax. Black coax cable, silver Sharpie marker, LK, and the length of that cable. I carry assorting writing sticks and clipboards and pads of paper. I carry dollar store carabiners, and dollar store carabiners are wonderful. I'm going to see a photo in the next slide on why they're so wonderful, but just little cheap things like here I'm holding up in front of the camera, along with the next item on the list, a Lee Valley Tools rare earth magnet hook. This is a neodymium magnet and a little cup hook, if you will, and you hang one of these up on a drop T-bar ceiling in a facility, or as you'll see in a photo in a moment, on a metal beam, and you have a very fast cable management system, getting your cabling straight up off the table and up to the ceiling and then out a window. I carry a set of hand and soldering tools. Remember, I do EmComm. My message must get through. So I carry tools with me, antenna analyzers, hand tools, soldering tools, whatever that is. And then I carry extra feed line in addition. I carry an extra set of mag mount whips. I never know why I need them. I'll show you in a photo why I do. And as I mentioned, an antenna analyzer. So from left to right, we've got the headphone amp that I've been talking about. In this case, it is a Behringer headphone amp. They're about 40 Canadian dollars, about 30 US at any music store, or off, that big internet place that some people like to buy stuff from. That LM386 module I bought off eBay for $4. It came out of Asia, and I chopped some traces on the circuit board. I ran the input of it into that amp, and I drove that amp as hot as I could without clipping it. So I measured it on my oscilloscope. So I know the audio that comes out of the powered speaker is clean. And then I routed the output of it back out to the jack itself. And you can see I clearly have one marked speaker. Translation: don't plug in your headphones unless you are trying to get rid of them and your hearing. In the center, I've got the dumpster antenna. And so at big at the big white winter rally a couple of years back now, we had a failure of the old repeater. And so this old repeater would fail on us it was used heavily once a year, and it was used heavily for this event, and it would fail most of the way through the day. And we never knew why it failed. We just knew it was old. We didn't manage it. It was in British Columbia. It's an 8-hour drive from home. I don't know who the management crew are, who the hams are. So it would fail on us. And this year when it failed on us 5 minutes ahead of starting the stage. So we're in the point where we've got 25 hams out on a stage, and I'm working my way methodically through the list. Blocker 2, are you in position? Blocker 3, are you in position? And I let go of the mic and I don't hear a courtesy tone. And I'm trying to work my way through my check-in list. And this is a timed event, and time is fairly crucial that the event keeps moving on schedule. And I realized that the repeater had failed. We were operating at 5 watts inside the ski patroller's hut. We're at a ski hill, and we're operating 5 watts to get to that repeater. So nobody could hear us from inside the ski patroller's hut because, of course, it's got a metal roof on it, right? I was close enough to the repeater to work at the 5 watts, so that was an okay plan. The repeater dies. I grab one of my 5/8 mag mount whips and 100 feet of feed line, and I tell somebody to crack open a window. And I grabbed the shovel that you see pictured there, and I cleared off a chunk of snow, and I dropped the mag mount on the dumpster and ran the feed line back in the window. I hooked it up directly to my radio, and I flipped my radio into reverse mode, and now I'm talking on the output of the repeater. Attention all stations, the primary repeater has failed. Please switch over to the backup repeater. And I repeated that 2 or 3 times while my fellow net control was listening on the backup repeater and starting to take check-ins from people. That's why you carry extra gear, so you can pull that stuff off in a hurry when you need to. And then lastly, I talk about the neodymium magnets and the Lee Valley Tools rare earth hooks. Yes, Lee Valley Tools is a brand you can get in America, as I understand it. They're mail order only. It's a wonderful place to buy tools here in Canada and gardening supplies. But here's a metal beam set up in the arena for Rocky Mountain Rally in British Columbia. And I can use these hooks to snap onto a fluorescent light fixture or anything else that might happen to be on the ceiling. This is, you can see it's a popcorn ceiling. The other place we can use these hooks, of course, is a T-bar in a drop ceiling environment. So these are problem solvers, and these problem solvers, I pull them out once every 3 times, and they save my bacon each time, and they keep the event going. Here are my typical operating conditions when I'm out glamping. The picnic table portable, you can see an umbrella there and a chair turned upside down, and that's for sun protection. It was really hot the day I took the photo, and I didn't want the sun to bake on the black equipment because, you know, that would be bad. It would overheat it and such. The lower left is the photo of my operating position within my glamper, within my RV, where my gear almost fits, save for the laptop. It actually is a little bit more secure than it looks. The drawer that's below the right-hand case pulls out, and I have a shelf that sits flat on top. I can sit my CW key on top of that and have another horizontal surface. The center photo, you can see my masts set up with the guy ropes, and then the wires set up in an inverted V fashion with the collinear on top. And then lastly, how do I get 3 feed lines in my RV? I repurposed this thing called I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this. It's called a phone line. My rig is old enough to have a phone line plug. Well, it had a phone line plug in it, and it came around from one side of the tip out to, you know, the right-hand side of the desk. And I pulled that phone line out, and I ran 3 12-inch cables. That was the only distance. And I buried them inside a standard NEMA 515P waterproof enclosure, and I made them BNC because the profile of UHF plugs wouldn't fit, and BNC is good for higher frequencies, as some of us believe. So this was an easy way for me to get 3 feed lines in. Yes, they are color coded. That's so I don't mix them up. And why are they R, G, and B? That's because at one point in my life, I was trained for television broadcasting, and red, green, and blue sticks with me. But moreover, those are the colors of the Sharpie markers that I carry with me everywhere. So sometimes there's no purpose to these things. Let me talk a bit about the computer. The Panasonic Toughbook CF53 you'll see a lot of folks talking about Panasonic Toughbooks, and they have for some time. And then you see folks like Julian, OH8STN. He talks about having a Windows tablet or a really thin device. It's all about purpose. My purpose is I wanted to bring a computer out in the field, a Windows 7 supported ruggedized computer with a genuine serial port to take along for field diagnostic work. My secondary purpose is my Go kit and to replicate what's on my desk. So I chose the CF53 for that purpose. It's a magnesium case. It's got a nice long battery life. It's not a super old computer that just draws down batteries really fast. It's not a speed demon. It's an i5, but I don't care. I don't need speed. As I mentioned, it's got enough RAM and enough hard drive to do what I needed to do. It's got a daylight viewable screen, which is really great when it's sitting out on the picnic table. It's not heavy. It's just under 6 pounds. It's got a nice integrated carrying handle, as you can see. And if you need an IO port, this thing's got it. This thing's big enough to have all of the ports. It's not like my MacBook Pro or my MacBook Air that's got 2 USB-C ports and then you need dongles for everything. It's not like that at all. I run Windows 7 on it because Windows 7 is an operating system that doesn't challenge me and say, a new version of your driver has been found. Would you like us to download it? And then suddenly the driver that you so carefully downloaded for your piece of peripheral isn't working. And that's what Windows 10 does for me. So I stay on Windows 7 because it's a stable operating system. The other thing that I needed to do was I needed to be able to run Windows XP and DOS, remember DOS, to be able to program some of my radios. I can't do that from Windows 10. I cannot virtualize Windows XP and DOS. I needed to stay on Windows 7 in order to be able to do that. So the other things that this computer does for me, just to list off a whole bunch of them in no order in particular, WinLink Express, Vera HF, and FM. It's also configured to use with my WinLink to Go kit. I use Ham Radio Deluxe DM780. I use FL Digi and FL Rig, WSJTX. I've got the STR software for my STR Play radio. That connects through the PAN adapter tap that I have in the FT857 to my SDR. I use the KD2C PAN adapter tap that's based on the Golf 4 Hotel Uniform POTA design. So it's real high impedance. It's a really tiny board. I have the programming software for all of my radios loaded on this computer. TNC management software. It's my field diagnostic tool. So my requirements, I say, are simple. I need Windows 7 to program radios, do some digital modes, Windows XP, DOS to program some radios, and be in a package that's ruggedized like the rest of my kit, that I can put it in the back seat or in the trunk of a car and not worry about it. So look, in summary, I rely very heavily on my friends Kepner and Tregoe. I don't know who Kepner and Tregoe are. I mean, they're not my friends, but you know what I mean. I rely on Kepner-Tregoe. Determine your must-have and your nice-to-have items. Figure out your purpose, the locations for use, and the mechanical considerations that you want in your kit. Because the purpose and the electrical and the mechanical design elements determine the functionality and your kit building points. So a kit that has narrow focus in its purpose is going to be, it can be lightweight. However, a highly flexible kit like mine is anything but lightweight. So I hope that there's a whole bunch more elements involved in operating away from home. I hope this presentation was helpful to you to think about the equipment and a little wee bit about the human comfort aspects of operating portable. By no means is that list complete, but for me, it's just a starter. I hope you found this presentation helpful and thought-provoking, and I wish you the best success as you build your own kit. Now, the last thing I want to do is show you folks my problem solvers. So I have, and they're off to the side here, so I'm going to look sideways from the camera. I've got all of my Sharpie markers, including the silver Sharpie marker, some writing sticks, pens and pencils always come with me, as do erasers, a real big assortment of the dollar store carabiners. And seriously, don't overspend on carabiners. They don't have to carry a lot of weight. They carry 3 pounds. These magnetic hooks come in 2 different sizes. Accept no substitute. Don't get magnetic hooks that come from the home improvement store. That's either the blue box store or the orange box store. I tried those and I got rid of them. They do not stick very well at all. The neodymium magnets is where you want to be. And my friend, the 3M painter's tape. Those are the absolute must-haves in my kit. As a matter of fact, in my backpack, I carry a set of Sharpie markers. In my tool bag, I carry a set of Sharpie markers. They're about this long. They're the little bitty mini ones. Sharpie markers are my friend, as are all the rest of those. So anyway, those are my problem solvers, and that's what I've got in my kit. So thanks for listening. And at this point, I'll be happy to take any questions you may have, please.
No, it was, I learned some stuff because I'm in the, first off, the little magnetic hooks. My wife and I have a set because we like to cruise, and most
Right.
cruise ship cabin walls are metal, and there's never enough place to hang things in a cabin. So we take those. So I've got plenty of those.
Beautiful.
I'm in the process of building, because I want to try POTA this year. And I'm in the process. I've got an 857 non-D, and I've got an MFJ tuner. So to start with, I'm just putting that in a 2U rack box, and I'm building a battery box separate. So that's, and it's little tips and stuff like this. I'm learning as I go.
Awesome.
So I'm going to be using one of the Pactena end-fed half waves. So
Perfect. I love my little Comet HFJ 350. I found a tripod at a thrift store, and this tripod would otherwise sell for $100 on Amazon or wherever. It's got a nice tilt head to it. It's a removable plate style tripod, kind of a quasi Manfrotto, if you will. And so that removable plate, if you go to my website, you'll see how I set up this antenna. But I found a really long plate, and I've got a barrel connector through it, and the antenna screws on top, and the cable comes out the bottom.
Nice.
It's a super lightweight kit that just all fits in the tripod bag. It's awesome for setting up just about anywhere.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or things you'd like to discuss? Anybody? Don't be shy. All right.
It's a tough crowd tonight. I think we're good here.
No, I think, yeah. And that's a lot to think about. And Chris, did you have something?
Oh, no, nothing in particular. No, I got some useful things out of it. I like the problem solvers.
Yeah.
Great.
Hadn't thought about the carabiners would be very useful for making cables behave and go places.
Yeah, I set up for the MS bike tour, and we had two of us sitting on the table. We had 3 radios between us, and I started throwing these up on the ceiling on the T-bar, and then of course you can just take the feed line and snap it into the cable, or you can run the cable through it and then hold it up the ceiling and hook it, and it doesn't come down. These things are just great.
Yeah, awesome. All right.
A lot of great ideas. Yeah, it's giving me some ideas for field day here.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Because yeah, that's another thing I'm hoping. I'm going to try to get this thing all buttoned up by the end of May, so we can I can actually bring it to field day as well. I'd like to try that. So I've got so many friends who do this, and it just seemed like something new. And you're not stuck down here in the basement. You can get out and get some fresh air, play with the radio. My wife, who's not into the radio, but she'll go out there with me, and she'll either read a book or crochet or do something. And it's just, it's a nice activity for the two of us to get out and get some fresh air and some sunshine.
Yeah, it's delightful. Really go take a look at Thomas, K4SWL. You'll find him on Twitter. I can't remember his handle there offhand. At any rate, when you go watch his videos, you'll see he's got a different kit for a different purpose. Now, he's the kind of guy who owns 5 QRP radios. He's got, like a Penn PG45, and he's got an LTR Mountaintop, or I'm getting all these names wrong. He has, a K3 and a K2, and he's got a bunch of radios, and they're all, in his case, for purpose, but he's got a kit defined with each one of them. The way he kits them into a bag is very well done. You can learn some stuff about POTA and about really light rate operating by looking at his videos. You can learn some stuff about kitting and SOTA operations by following guys like Charlie NJ7B and several others as they figure this stuff out. And lastly, there's a fellow named Gaston KT1RUN, the tech prepper on YouTube, who is also a really good builder of kits to take off into the back of Beyond. So my kit, you could take it off into the back of Beyond, but you might need a whole lot of water to get there and a few pounds lost, which in my case wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah. Explain to me the FT meter.
The FT meter is an external device designed for FT817, 5797 radios and a few others. It's a discontinued accessory from LDG. If you look on the bottom of your faceplate on your FT857, you'll see a little tiny 3.5 millimeter jack, and that is to drive the this meter for whatever purpose you want. And you can turn on a menu in your 857 and say, what's the purpose for the external meter when I'm receiving and when I'm transmitting, and you can define those fields. So it provides secondary metering. So I set up with a tuner. I'm never too concerned about SWR because I let the tuner do that lifting after I check my antenna with my analyzer so that I know I'm resonant, but in case I'm not, I can fix that.
Yeah.
One of my meters tells me what my power output is, and the other meter tells me what my ALC is. So I know if I'm putting out signal and if I'm not clipping my audio the wrong way.
Yeah. Cool. Now I have to hunt one down.
About $40 or $45 on the used market in American dollars, about 60 or 70 in Canadian dollars.
All right. I'll keep an eye out for it then.
They come in 2 different sizes.
Yeah, I just recently picked this up, and I'm excited to learn a different radio, and the fact that it does 160 to 70 centimeters is pretty mind blowing. So, yeah, and I figure a couple of years with this, if I'm really happy, then I'll maybe upgrade to a D or a different. But a lot of people really love those 857s. So
I love them well enough, Paul, that I own 2 of them. And one of them is in my truck. The one in my truck is an original D, which is to say it came with the DSP module. I added the sideband filter to it because I rarely operate CW when I'm mobile. Then the other radio I bought was a non-D, and the seller had already put the DSP, the stabilized oscillator in it, both filters. So it's loaded and it's effectively a D. And that's what's in my kit, which is just awesome.
I'll have to look into that then. Then I maybe will just tweak mine a little bit. So
tweak yours a little bit and keep an eye on the display. And if it develops in the zebra stripes, there's a fix for that too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right on.
Well, thank you very much, Vince. Well, this was well worth it. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna edit this down, just open and closing slides, and I'll put this up on my channel, and the members of the club who weren't there tonight will be able to watch it. But this was very educational.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for having me out. I'm honored to be here this evening. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you around.
All right. Good night, Vince.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for coming out, Vince.
Okay.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
All right. Anybody got anything else? Then I think this covers May. We'll be doing some stuff via email to kind of coordinate for field day, and because I really want to do that. And I think Joe, I think having it out at Casa Krasachek is it's a good idea.
Well, all we could do is try, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, we don't have to, the guy that owns the place seems to be amenable to doing radio stuff.
Once in a while.
Yeah. So,
I'm
All right.
hoping he can get up the tower and fix a couple things before then, but
Can we get pizzas delivered out there?
Yeah, maybe. I think
Or
Wanna
or-
Pizza might deliver.
or-
If you
or
want
fire
a
up the-
terrible pizza.
Or fire up the grill or something?
we may have
Yeah,
to
I
make
was thinking
a pizza run like we did last year.
we can get a pizza run into town, yeah, because Broncos is much better than Wanna Pizza. They don't deliver though.
Yeah.
But yeah, their pizza is way better. So
Is that a second printer?
nope. It's a third.
A third? Because I know the big one in the glass box.
Yeah, I got a 2. This is a 2. I got a 2, a 3, and a 5 now.
Ooh, fancy.
We've been starting to produce parts, so it's quickly becoming a farm.
Very good. All right. Let me stop the recording.